Hi, and welcome to the show. Subscribe at kevinmd.com/podcast. Today, we welcome Michael Lynch and Alisa Olsen. They're both certified financial planners. They're co-authors of the book, Taking Care of Your Future, Your Simple System for a Big Retirement. There's an excerpt from that book on Kevin MD. Create your own financial vision for independence. Michael and Alisa, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here, Kevin.
Great to
Great to
be
be
here.
here.
All right. So both of you are certified financial planners, and as physicians, and this audience is mostly clinicians, very interested in hearing about your perspective and tips. Michael, talk about the Kevin MD article that you shared with us from the book.
The main focus of that was really what we think is the most important thing with financial planning is figuring out what you want in life 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the road, right? Have your vision for your retirement. And or your financial independence, or you're working until the end, whatever your vision is. So you don't let anybody else push you around. And then it's that vision that is going to determine what you need to do to get there, which if you start early enough, is you can almost put it on automatic pilot. And so, yeah, it's like take a step back. Yogi Berra said, if you don't know where you're going, you're bound to wind up someplace else. And what we don't want to do after 30, 40 years of working, serving patients, helping, heal people, we don't want you to be financially sick. So get it figured out early.
So, Michael, for your physician clients, what are some examples of visions that they've communicated to you? What would that look like?
Well, here's one. I have a cardiologist at a main place that most people would know who said, I never want to retire because I see when my patients retire, we call them clients, you call them patients,
Yeah,
right? Some people call them customers, whatever.
yeah.
When my peeps retire, they go downhill quick. And I started thinking about that. It didn't ring true with me because I work with a lot of engineers, a lot of nurses. We have a wide practice. So I work with people that make 30,000 a year and people that make 3 million a year. So we see a wide range, right? And that's not what we see. That's not what we see with the most. And I said, when I talk to them next time, I said, your clients are executives, aren't they? They're the top, they're at the top of whatever pyramid they're at. And then that made sense to me. So with him, what are we looking at is the doctors, what do you get burned out on? You get burned out on the call, on the night shift, on all that stuff. And so our vision typically with the physicians is, can I go part-time? Can I go half-time, right? Can I get off the treadmill, have more time for family life, more time for travel, right? To enjoy the financial rewards that we've been able to build up. So that tends to be the vision. How do we slow this thing down but never stop? How do we slow it down but not stop?
Alisa, in the excerpt, both of you share a story about a nurse who just wanted to sip tea during nor'easters. So, for those of you who get a chance to read the excerpt, tell us about that story and how does that translate into a simple emotional vision?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, it starts with a vision. And when we asked, what are you looking to do in retirement? Their vision was essentially, when it's a snowstorm, I want to be able to enjoy myself and not have to go. That was part of their retirement vision of not having to slog in on a storm in bad weather. And that's what they wanted to work towards. And that was their vision of a financial, independence, either saying, I'm done and I'm out, or I'm done, I'm not doing it, I'm just doing, you know what I mean? So I feel like everyone has to start with what their end goal is. And then it's all about, well, how do we get you to their end goal, or what are we working towards? And where are we in that, in that process? Are you already there and you can choose at any time? Because that's another question
Mm-hmm.
we ask. If you could do that tomorrow, do you want to? And sometimes people are like, oh, yes, I just needed permission to say yes. And, or like Mike's, the other person said, no, I don't ever want to quit. I want to be able to know I can, but maybe I don't ever want to
Mm-hmm.
because it fulfills me.
And Kevin, if I could on this one, this is an interesting one because to fill her vision, she wanted to retire. She's like, I don't want to travel. I'm not in great health. I'm not in great health. And her husband was not in great health either. And we put in a generator in the house, financed a generator, redid the kitchen, and she got to live her retirement dream. And I say that because she had diabetes, she got sick, and she passed this year,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it was a good thing that she was able, and she did not think she could retire. And we were able to show her she could get it done. And she was so happy. And the last thing she told me I told you I was sick. She said, I told you I wasn't in good health. It's right. Like there's something on a tombstone that says, I told you I was sick. It's one of the famous old comedians did it.
Mhm.
And so one of the things to bring it back to your audience is that physicians and nurses and healthcare people know is that life can turn on a dime. We have today, we have this minute, but we might not have, we don't know. We might not have the 10, 15, 20 years we want. So we do want to blend the future and the present and really get done what we want it done. And we don't, money is just a tool to make that happen, right?
Yeah.
Most people do not spend all their money. They do not die broke. And so if you're not going to spend your last dollar, how can we use those dollars to really to create the life that we want for our loved ones and ourselves?
Alisa, when you talk to physicians, and I'm sure this happens a lot because I talk to physicians, they can't imagine a life outside of medicine because for the past 20, 30 years that they've been in medicine, it's so consuming ever since they were a pre-medical student. Now, what do you do when you encounter physicians like that when they can't really articulate what their vision could be because a life in medicine is just so consuming?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. What do you do when there is no vision? And I feel like if there's no vision, we say, okay, maybe it's something that's going to come down the line, but sometimes being financially independent is just as important to them. Like, hey, maybe I can't see retirement, but I want to know that I have enough. And so we really kind of focus on, financial independence. And that those two things don't necessarily, coincide. Someone could be financially independent and still working. Somebody could not be financially independent and be retired, right? So for us, it's really looking at financial independence, making sure they see where they are and where they can go. And then it's their decision. And I think that brings a lot of power or a lot of peace to people. Okay, I don't have to, I want to keep doing it, but I know if something were to happen, I don't need to worry because I'm all set.
Mhm. Michael, one of the core concepts you wrote in the article was expenses drive your retired life,
Yes,
right? So
yes,
talk more about
yes.
that concept and how it relates to your physician clients.
All right. Well, financial independence is all about expenses, and that's not being a buzzkill. Say you can't go to Starbucks and pick up your coffee. It's just a recognition that what the money is for is to finance your lifestyle. And two people could have the same salaries while working, earn the same amount of money, live on the same street, and one family may need $10,000 a month to live, and the other one may need 25 based on lifestyle decisions, preferences for cars, preferences for vacations, preferences for supporting adult children. And so the key to finding out if you're financially independent is not talking to somebody and saying, well, I have $1 million, I have $5 million. It's figuring out, okay, my lifestyle requires 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, $25,000 a month to make it go. And I will be financially independent when I have enough assets and rights to income sources, Social Security. Some doctors may still have a pension if they're hospitalists at a various place, right? That I can live and I can support myself passively. So we have to know what we spend, and while we're earning, we don't pay attention to it perhaps
Yeah.
that much. We pay attention to a few dials, make sure we don't go in credit card debt, we pay our bills, we fund our retirement plans, but are we having enough? And what I will say for your doctors, I got a doctor client, and when I saw him, he was doing perfect middle class financial planning. He was maxing out his employer retirement plans, and he was 5 years from retiring. And his wife was a nurse, and it was a speech I gave. And it had become great clients. When I got to him, I said, "Man, you got to kick it in the rear." He's like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, you're doing middle class financial planning, but you're a high earner,
Hmm.
right? If you make $150,000 a year, Social Security replaces a lot of it, and 20, 30,000 in a 401k or 403b, that gets you where you need to go. But if you're earning 600,000 a year, you need to do additional investing. If you're in fact living on it, which this family was. And fortunately we got it done, right? And just an absolutely model client, because he could, we could make a treatment plan and he could follow it. But that wasn't something that was taught, right? So if you
Yeah.
just read the publications that are out there, they're targeted for middle class and working class people, high income, affluent people. Affluent wealth is what you have. Affluence is what you earn. And affluent people, doctors, lawyers, they have a hard time building wealth a lot of times because it's not automatic like a business owner, and they have high taxes. And you might notice, your doctor clients and your listeners will notice, everybody's handing them the bill, right? Nobody hands a plumber the bill, but they hand the doctor the bill, and everybody assumes you just print money. And if you don't mindfully stuff it away for yourselves, there may come a time where, yes, you're consuming your work. Yes, you love your work. But all of us professionals, we start out young and engaged, and then the whole thing can change on us. And at some point, we might want to say, well, you know what? You keep that change. I'm going to go, I got a hobby now. I'm going to go fishing. I'm going to go golfing, right? I'm out of here. So that's where we want to put your people in a position to be able to do.
Alisa, in the article, it was noted that housing, education, and retirement are all interrelated. What would you say is the most common or difficult trade-off you see families having to make between those big goals?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like especially when you have, long hours, if you're going to have a family or you're, hey, in the next couple of years, we want to start a family, we want to move into a house. It's really about looking into the future and planning for those costs and making sure that they all work together because you can have a kid, but if you have to do daycare, those daycare costs, they could be 25, 30. Depends where you are and what you need. And also, okay, housing costs, certainly, if no matter where you are, depending on the housing costs, it's all about kind of making those things fit. And, sometimes we look at it, okay, well, you might be, they like to say no one can ever afford their first house, but you might be tight in those years where you have both, right? But then sometimes what we see is, well, if we're done with, daycare or early childhood education, well, that cost can then kind of bleed into once we're done, maybe that goes to saving for college. Once that's off the table, that's another thing to kind of, save. But it's all about, especially for younger people starting out and wanting to kind of, build a family, it's really looking at all those expenses and how they're going to integrate in with another because we don't want you to feel like, wow, I can't do both or this is really tight. Like that's not our goal, but we look at it from a lot of different viewpoints so that we hope, people are really confident when they're making those decisions.
Yeah.
And Alisa, any common themes when it comes to red flags or mistakes that you see some of your physicians' clients make when it either comes to vision or financial planning? Any commonalities in the mistakes that you see them making?
This kind of ties back to the question about, okay, living expenses and driving and just retirement in general. We work with a lot of people, in hospitals and education. And the first thing we really talk about is, okay, having an understanding of what you're spending. And if you don't track it, that's fine. But if you're like, listen, I just really want to replace my take home. Okay, I don't have time for that. But if I can live on my take home, I'll be good, right? Then that's a key data point. Okay, let's replace your take home income and we can do that. Because like those expenses really drive what you're going to need for retirement. And I feel like where people can get it wrong is when you have that number, oh, I need 10, but you don't really know. And then in retirement, hey, I actually need 15. Well, that extra 5,000 a month or 25,000 a year is really a big replacement in the amount of overall assets you need. You need a big pile of money to generate that extra income. So I would say someplace you can do it wrong if someone works with us for a few years, like, yep, I only live off this, I only live off this. And then they're in retirement and it's like, okay, holy smokes, I don't. That's where we feel like people can get in trouble or get it wrong.
All right, let's zoom out a little bit. This excerpt, of course, is from your book, Taking Care of Your Future, Your Simple System for a Big Retirement. Michael, what are some other key points you want my physician listeners to come away with after reading your book?
I think one of the big things is time and money, time and money, time and money. And so you start inch by inch, it's a cinch, and by the yard, it's hard. It's like reverse compounding. I love nicotine. I love smoking cigarettes. I'm 56 years old and I haven't smoked in years. And why is that? Because I knew that that would ruin my life right now if I had, right? If I had, because it wasn't going to hurt my 20s, it wasn't going to hurt my 30s, it probably wouldn't affect my 40s, but my 50s, 60s, and certainly my 70s, it was going to debilitate me. Investing is the exact opposite of that. If you start early, the money that you're able to squirrel away in your 30s and for 20s, 30s, and 40s takes care of the 50s, 60s, and 70s. You almost need nothing in. Now, that brings one of the challenges, of course, physicians have, and that is unique with you. That needs to be thought through, planned around, and then hopefully, leverage, which is you start working late, you start earning late, right?
Yeah.
And So we do a lot of planning with our physicians around those intern years. And a lot of times that starts with family formation. So, how is it we bridge to get a house on the physician on the intern type of salary when we know what's coming down the pike, right? And then the flip side of it, which is if you have two physicians, very common, a lot of your listeners probably two physician households now. I know when I was that part of my life, and Alisa certainly went through that part, very similar to me. I said, I'm buying a house based on 1.5 incomes, not two, because when we have babies, one of us might decide that we want to what? Dial it back and reprioritize. It's hard to know where we're going to be. So that's what I would say. Time and money, inch by inch is an inch by the yard. It's hard. And that whole issue I said with affluent people have a harder time building wealth than not affluent people because taxes are high. You start earning later. In a certain sense, you're a little bit like athletes. They have a huge salary for a short period. You have physicians earn very solid incomes, but they start a decade late, right? You start later than other professionals, and so that needs to be thought through as well.
Michael, one of the things that you said in the excerpt was either you take vacations or your children will, right? So unpack what that means for people that sometimes maybe are too frugal or save too much.
So there's different personality types with money, Kevin, that won't surprise you, right? So spenders don't have a problem with that. Spenders will take vacations and their kids will earn their own vacation, it can be fine. But what we see with a lot of saver types, the people that really do get into this in their 20s and 30s and 40s, the type that hire us, is by the time they get financially independent, they have such a habit of saving that they feel uncomfortable spending, right? And that point on that is that your money is going somewhere. And so I remember my father, a businessman, he had to run a business and it kind of got him out of retirement, and he was back and he was booking airline tickets and he was going to China, and it was $10,000 from my mom to fly in the front of the plane. And I said, well, Dad, and I said, each or both? And he said, both. And I said, well, here's what I want you to see, Dad. I was actually on the treadmill at the gym doing it. I said, every time you have a choice to spend $10,000 and fly in the front of the plane or $2,000 and fly in the back, I want you to see me spending your money to fly in the front of the plane. And he loved it, right? And he loved it. And so that's my point. Your money's going somewhere. You're spending it. Your kids are spending it, or someone you give it to, or the government. So it's not about wasting money. That would be stupid. But it is about optimizing out what is important to you. And everybody, different things are important to different people, but making sure it's there for you. You use it. Is it to make yourself work less, to spend time with the grandkids, to rent the whole house for the family and get together? Everybody's different, but that's what I mean by that. That's what I mean by that. People don't spend their money.
We're talking to Michael Lynch and Alisa Olsen. They're both certified financial planners. We're talking about their book, Taking Care of Your Future, Your Simple System for a Big Retirement. Now I'm going to ask each of you just to share some take-home messages that you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience. Alisa, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I would definitely say first off, take advantage of what's offered to you in your benefits from from your hospital or your employer, and just make the most of that. You make sure you're utilizing that. If you have a certain type of plan, like a legal plan that you can opt into, or making sure that you have benefits that you can opt into, or even making sure you're getting the most of your match. And also, I would say sometimes people feel like they're overwhelmed, meaning, well, we have conversations with our neighbors and, well, I can't save that much. So, why should I bother? And I do feel like you need to remember, you just need to do what's the best for you. And you will certainly see progress over time. And really the best time to start saving was yesterday, but the next best time to start saving is today.
And Michael, what end of your take-home messages?
I guess my take-home message is I would treat your financial health the way you tell your patients to treat their physical health, and understand that it's kind of very similar, just like you don't have control over what your patients do, and they know what they should do, and they oftentimes don't do what they should do, but you wouldn't want them beating themselves up. It's the same for you. But I would say spend a little time on it every year. Be mindful of what you need to put in. We haven't even talked about this aspect of it, but be mindful of the income taxes you're going to pay and the way you accumulate your wealth. And then don't be scared to use it when it's there at the end, right? So that would be my take home.
Michael and Lisa, thank you so much for sharing your perspectives and insights, and thanks again for coming on the show.
Kevin, it's been a real pleasure working with you. Been a real pleasure. So I look forward to seeing the product.
Yeah, thank you so much.